Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Monday edition of Moohead Radio. I'm your host, the big and furry bovine. Nice to be back with you after the Thanksgiving weekend. I think sometimes you just need a little time off. And sometimes it just gets real old going over the same shit over and over. So it gives me a chance to look at what's happening and to put some things in context because I think that it's really important. And I know that there are people who are despondent over the fact that these programs are not solely Browns oriented now, nor will they probably ever be, because they're not a serious organization. There are other organizations who are equally non serious. So we're going to start out the program today with the overall theme of the program, which is when you're dealing with athletics, especially in a really athletic league, whether it's the NFL or whether it's the NBA, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And a very interesting story that has developed after the Cleveland Cavaliers took it upon themselves to hang tough till the end of the game and pull out a 115 to 111 victory against the Boston Celtics. It was the aftermath of the game that had kind of a surprising little twist to it. And it brings up a number of things that I had talked about in the past that I felt needed to be addressed. Specifically, Darius Garland's inability to gain muscle mass, which was made basically as an excuse by people as far as because, his broken jaw and this and that. And I understand that absolutely messed up his season. But in previous years, it's been the same way. He misses a fair number of games, and he's not in what I would call NBA shape. And we got a first indication that somebody besides me felt that way as the Boston Celtics down the stretch in that game went completely one-on-one against Darius Garland and made him try to play defense against, Tatum and against Pritchard and against a bunch of players and it was a matter of them forcing Garland into a defensive stance through switching. They were throwing screens and forcing Garland to guard people. And the aftermath of the game, in which thank goodness Donovan Mitchell came alive in the fourth quarter of the game, and down the stretch, Darius Garland was exposed to play defense. Now, with mixed results, Pritchard backed him down on two occasions, literally bumped him down the lane for an easy layup late in the game. He played a very good defensive play against Tatum, who was trying to bump him and back him down. And it was obvious that the Celtics were picking on him. And Darius Garland, obviously after the game, was not real happy with the Celtics. His quote was, "I ain't no punk." And basically standing up for himself because he felt that he was targeted, which he was, by the Celtics, and which was not a bad strategy on the part of the Celtics. Here's a part of this story that gets intriguing. Here's the quote. "I'm going to take that challenge whenever it is," Garland said. "I'm no punk. So if you all want to switch and to X me out and try to just hunt me out, that's cool. I ain't no punk, though. I'm going to take a challenge." But it was what Kenny Atkinson, who is proving to be a very, very good coach, said after the game. He believes that the Cavaliers, quote, hid Garland in the playoffs last season instead of letting him do his thing and adjust to the switches. Here's the quote. "This goes back to me," beating Atkinson, "watching the playoffs last year. And, I think they did different things to hide him. My point to Darius was, we're not hiding you. You're good enough. Accept the challenge. You're smart enough. Because I think when you start doing the tricky stuff, these teams are too good. You got to be able to switch. And if he's going to play at the end of games, he's got to be able to switch. God bless Kenny Atkinson. Finally, somebody had the stones to tell the truth. This notion that the Cavaliers were a soft team for the past 2 years has been repeated over and over again. And sure enough, the Celtics took heart and said, we're going to stop flinging the ball around and taking 3-point shots, and we're going to go right after the weakest link. And we're going to bang him one-on-one, and we're going to win the game that way. And afterwards, everybody will say the Cavaliers are soft still. But at the heart of what Kenny Atkinson is saying is that J.B. Bickerstaff did not believe in his team. J.B. Bickerstaff would do anything, including sell his grandmother, if he thought it would help him win. For himself, not for the players. He started out being a player's coach, and he ended up being a me-first coach. The fact that they were trying to hide Darius in the playoffs tells me that J.B. Bickerstaff didn't believe him, didn't believe in him, didn't think he was tough enough, and now we start thinking about Jarrett Allen as well. How is it that players get to be more physical players? And the answer is you have to put them in the situation to prove to the player that he still needs improvement and still needs to work. These guys come out and they can put up points, but they can't play an overall game. And they can remain in the league for a long time doing that, but they'll never be part of a championship team unless they come off the bench to score points only. If you want to be a starting 5 player and get the meaningful minutes when the game hangs in the balance, you got to be able to do a bunch of things. Now, did Darius Garland build his body up? No. Was I right? Yes. The bottom line is that now he's going to realize that he has to, because he's not going to be switched off of big physical players. He's going to take a fucking beating. And he's going to wish that he built his body up more. All he has to do is swivel his head and look at Donovan Mitchell at what a player who is NBA serious looks like. I see that Hammer is joining us. Hi, Hammer. How you doing?
I am still in recovery mode from this weekend, but yesterday made me feel a lot better. Always good beating the Celts, but
recovery
mode. Saturday was not a good day. Saturday was not a good day in the collegiate volleyball or basketball football world. Something bad happened here in Columbus. I don't know what. Yeah,
we'll talk about that a little later in the show because I have a strong opinion about that too. But Jarrett Allen, soft. Darius Garland, soft. But it was J.B. Bickerstaff who was having them do all this tricky stuff and switching instead of forcing the players to confront their weaknesses. And Kenny Atkins is saying, look, we win as a team, and each component of the team has to do more than just score points. Hell, let's be honest. George Niang is not an Olympic athlete, all right? But he's out there trying to play defense, trying to get in front of people. He looks like Fred Flintstone doing it, but at least he's trying. The Cavaliers in previous 2 years in the playoffs, they just got punked. And the reason they got punked is because they were soft. In this game, a couple of things happened that made this an interesting game. First of all, Celtics fans will cry, well, we didn't have Jaylen Brown, and we didn't have Derek White, right? And that's what they'll hang their hat on. But the bottom line is this. They're the world champion team, and they're playing on the road against a team that had lost 2 in a row, and against Donovan Mitchell, who had lost his GPS system. In the last 2 games, he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. And for the first half of the game, he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. But they got the real Spida in the second half, and he went off. But
especially the fourth quarter.
Yeah. But here's the thing about the Cavaliers that becomes obvious, to me anyway. For teams who play more of a disciplined, come up to half court, kind of set it up team, the Cavaliers will blow the doors off them, because that fast-paced play and whipping the ball around and getting open threes really works well against what I call static offensive teams. Yet the Hawks, twice in a row, ran them to death. The Cavaliers need to be able to adjust defensively to pace of game. So the teams to look out for, interestingly, are not the Bucks, not the 76ers, not the teams that play in the half court, but the up-and-coming teams like the Orlando Magic, who are winning without Banchero, for God's sakes. I mean, teams like this are playing an up-tempo brand of basketball, and the Cavaliers have to be able to stop teams that transition well. And they played well twice against the Celtics, because the Celtics are a half-court team. Now, the Cavaliers aren't good enough to turn that half-court team, which has a lot of veterans on it now, who have won big games. Not good enough to force that pace onto a team like the Celtics. But what they can do is play more definitive defense, play more physically, and learn what it is to have to win with pressure on your shoulders, and to withhold that pressure without blowing up. And at the end of the road of that game, it was almost like Atkinson was challenging them. It's like, I'm not going to let them get the 3-point shot off. You foul them. And then they're going to foul you. And you're going to go to the free throw line, and you're going to knock down the free throws. And they knocked down their free throws. And it became a chess match. And by the end, Pritchard, they were run out of time. He tries to throw it off the front rim, and he steps into the lane, and that's that. So that's how the game is won. But the Cavaliers made all their free throws down the stretch. They did not choke. Nor did Garland back down. Did he do a great job defensively? He's not a great defensive player, and he's not physically the presence that is going to consistently stop Jason Tatum. The thing that was kind of irritating is that little Pritchard just headbutted him in down to the rim. It's like he's got to get stronger. But the good thing that came out of this was not only a W, but the understanding that the theory of the weakest link starts with the coach recognizing what those weak links are, and rather than trying to trick their way through it, to establish with players, here's how you get court time, and here's how you lose court time. And if you're not going to play both ends of the floor, got no use for you. Now you understand why the rookie Tyson, who's not ready to play in the NBA level, is getting minutes, is because he's willing to go out and just run nonstop defensively and chase people around like a crazy person and pick up a few fouls. And he wants to stay in the league so bad. And his history is he was a catch and shoot guy and an invent offense kind of guy. He was a college Karis LeVert kind of guy who was a scoring machine. Well, he ain't good enough to do that in the NBA when you're a low first round pick. It doesn't work that way. The only way you're going to get minutes in this system is if you play defense. Now, here's the other thing that I picked up from the Cavaliers and the Celtics, and then I'll move on. A was what I just mentioned, and B is coming up at you. The Cavaliers, how would I put this? I'm trying to think of the best way. They need help. They can't afford to sit and wait for Dean Wade forever, because they waited for Dean Wade forever last year, and he's either not willing to play hurt or he's the world's slowest healer. Whatever the case may be, this went on last year and it's going on again this year. When the Cavaliers are going small, they're too small, and it's forcing multiple small guys onto the court. And you wonder why somebody like Sam Merrill is less effective, because he's being exposed. He suddenly, when they're not in their transition game and they're playing a team that's keeping things in the half court, there isn't that opportunity to whip the ball around or to beat everybody to a spot or to throw the ball to Merrill on the wing, who's beating people down the floor, he can pull up and shoot the three. Everything's in half court set, and he looks like he's rushing his shot. Mechanically, the shot doesn't look right. And teams like the Celtics are getting second and third chances because they're too small on the floor. The Cavaliers have to do something. It's my opinion they're going to make some kind of a deal somewhere to get a bigger player who can play the minutes that they need more physically coming off the bench. Because what we have right now, guys like Merrill and Niang, who can make three-point shots if they're wide open, but they are not rebounders, they're not defenders, and we're trying to get Tyson on the floor, and he's not big enough at this point. He's not filled out physically enough to be able to put his weight against somebody and assert his will. So they're going to need somebody who can get this job done. And I have no idea who that player should be. I just know that he's got to have sufficient size, and that means like 6'8" Dean Wade size, and needs to be able to make open shots. That's the criteria. And anybody who has any ideas, feel free. Are you seeing anybody in the chat room?
I don't know. A couple of highlights from, I don't have YouTube up. A couple of highlights though from Mitchell's fourth quarter. They were talking about this on the radio here in Columbus. Scored 20 points in the quarter and shot 100%.
Yes,
and it's like
6 overall,
has not been done
from 3.
Yeah, hasn't been done very often. It was a minimal, small group of folks that had done stuff like that. And then the other thing was, and I don't know if you said something on this on over the weekend. It was Mitchell's. I love this stat. Mitchell's 59th game of at least 30 points, which moved him past one of our favorites, World B. Free, for second on the Cavs all-time list. He had passed Kyrie Irving last week, and he's a little bit behind the number one guy by about, 200 and something games of doing that. But the guy's only been here a short while, and you can certainly see the impact that he's made.
Now I'm seeing comments.
We talked about it the other day. He's an all-star.
Yeah, Donovan Mitchell
you were a little choppy over here.
In his career, he averages 29 points a game against the Celtics. For his whole career, whether he's playing in Utah, whether he's playing in Cleveland, he has really been a one-man wrecking crew against that team. So that's kind of nice. There are other things that I want to talk about before I talk about the Cleveland Browns, because I'm trying to find other things. I'll tell you one thing that, no, we're not doing that. No, I don't like the Broncos. There's nothing to like about the Broncos. What?
Oh, Bo Nix, come on, man.
Well, Bo Nix has started to play better football.
He's the Broncos' savior.
Well,
he has.
They say recently he's really started to come on. They had him momentarily as maybe injured, but he's playing. There's no No ifs, ands, or buts about that.
Yeah.
Now, what I wanted to talk about next is something that I think everybody knows, that the wife of McNair, the owner of the Texans, shot her mouth off and was kind of taking jabs at the Cleveland Browns organization because they took Watson off their hands and gave him all these draft picks. And the sudden desire on the part of fans to try to adopt the Texans as the team that is, if you don't have a team or your team sucks really bad, it's like you jump on the CJ Stroud train, right? I was interested in seeing,
fun to watch.
Yeah, my opinion of the Texans is that they're really not that good, but they're beating below average teams is what it amounts to. But watching that game, and
which we cannot do in Cleveland.
Yeah, it's the goddamn Jaguars, for God's sakes. I mean, and it's Fabio at quarterback. But Azeez Al-Shaair taking that cheap shot against Fabio was so uncalled for. And the thing that makes me, and I want to read this because he decided to put out a comment. All right.
Yeah, sometimes the best things said are nothing.
Yeah. And, Ian Rappaport wrote, on Twitter the extent of his comments, which I'll read to you. I've always played the game. This is the guy who made the dirty hit. I've always played the game as hard as I could, never with the intent to harm anyone. And anybody that knows me knows that. My goal is to hit you as hard as I can. And then I pray you're still able to get up and play the next play. And when the game is over, go home to your family unharmed, because it's not personal. It's just competition. ! We both are trying to do the same thing, which is provide for our families! ! I genuinely didn't see him sliding until it was too late. And it all happens in the blink of an eye. To Trevor, I genuinely apologize to you for what ended up happening. Before the game, we spoke, and I told you how it was great to see you back on the field and wished you well. I would never want to see any player hurt because of a hit I put on them, especially one that's deemed late or unnecessary. It's deemed late or unnecessary. To the rest of his teammates, I can definitely understand you having his back and defending him in a situation like that. To the rest of the people who I've been called every single name in the book from reporters with their hands ready for a story. All right, let me continue. To find their villain, to racist Islamophobic fans and people, you don't know my heart nor my character, which I don't need to prove to any of you. God knows my intentions, and anyone who has ever been a teammate or friend of mine knows my heart. I'm the victim. I'm Azeez Al-Shaair. He should never be allowed to play football anymore, because what he's saying is a fucking lie. The guy has been fined twice this year, once for punching a guy on the goddamn sidelines. A running back. He just punched him with his fist. Now, and he was fined a second time for a personal instance of violence. And now this. And we slow the play down, and I'm not going to do it on the show because I don't want to show that. It's really disturbing. And everybody knows that I think that Fabio is an overrated quarterback. Everybody knows that I feel that Trevor Lawrence is on the Clemson glamour train, but he's done nothing in the NFL to really prove that he has a strong enough arm to get the job done. And he's not really fast enough to be a Lamar Jackson running quarterback. He's just a long-haired guy who looks good in front of a glamour fan. All right. Even though his face kind of looks like, I don't know.
I was going to say he looks great in shampoo commercials. So
Yeah, but his face,
he needs to get on the Troy Polamalu Head and Shoulders.
Yeah, he looks like an Afghan dog. His face, he looks like an Afghan. You'd have to look that up.
He absolutely does.
Am I right? Am I right? Or am I right? Or am I right?
We've always called him Sunshine over here, so.
Yeah, that's a good nickname for him, but he looks like an Afghan. But it all happened in the blink of an eye. But he managed to get his forearm out for the forearm shiver to the head. Isn't that amazing? I get so sick of this. Football bothers me enough as it is because it's a violent sport to begin with. But seeing a guy's arms go rigid and fencing, as they call it, and that's brain damage, folks. For a momentary time, that's brain malfunction. That's a short circuit. That's a neurological issue.
We saw that with Tua this year.
That rigid kind of thing.
It was the same kind of thing. It was, yeah. It's a UFC looking thing.
Yeah. And I just find the whole thing just very reprehensible. And I wish the league would step in and put an end to this. If you want to protect players, and it turned the game around for the Texans to barely beat one of the shittiest, if not the shittiest football team in America, who's on its way to England.
Team that the Browns were able to beat.
Yeah. And it's heading for England probably when all's said and done because their fan base doesn't believe in them. So they beat them by 3 points and they had to fight like hell on their home field to do it. Yeah. Yeah. It's disheartening to say the least. Then you see the Taysom Hill season's over for the Saints because you see, if you take a guy
that's where I was going to go, Moo.
He's a tight end, and you're going to turn him into a quarterback.
The exact same thing.
And a running quarterback. And are you amazed that he tore his ACL the way they use this guy?
Well, he's 35. He was a quarterback in college.
I get it.
So it's not as if it's unheard of. But
there's just no regard for the safety whatsoever.
We're just going to keep throwing him out there and see if he can have another game like he did against the Browns.
Right.
It's a bummer for him because he might be done.
Well, yeah,
that's a year off. So there's not too many 36-year-old players playing in the league.
No, and it's not being used that way. It was bad enough when they used RG3 that way.
Yeah.
It's a surefire way. Yeah. It spells the end of people's careers. So I wanted to at least get that in there. And for Guardians fans, Matthew Boyd is going to the Cubs.
Ugh.
Cup of coffee with the Guardians. But, somebody had to give him an opportunity to come back from the hell he'd been through with his arm. And I say that you go for the money because
good for
the
him.
Likelihood based on this guy's career is that he's going to get hurt again. $29 million. He's 33 years old. He did a nice job for the Guardians. I got nothing bad to say. He can earn an additional $1 million in performance bonuses over the 2 years. So it's $14.5 million a year, and good for him because he's been through hell with arm trouble in his career. He was 2-2 with a 2.72 earned run average.
He seemed like he liked being in Cleveland as well. He said all the right things.
He got a chance in Cleveland that he wouldn't have gotten for other teams. He got exposure on a national stage in the playoffs, to show that he had his velocity back and that he had his location and that, that he was sharp, and it paid off for him. And I never say bad things about players. It's a business, for God's sakes. You got to go where you got to go. And that's who was
You're saying it was a business decision?
Yeah, except to play, not play. Which now
I kind of feel on the same note. I have a feeling Shane Bieber isn't going to come back either, though. I have a feeling he's going to be
got a clean slate somewhere.
I mean, they may get a hometown discount or something, but I kind of think he's gone.
And while we're talking about the weakest link theory, we'll talk about the Cleveland Browns. And halfway through the show, it's fair that we talk about the Browns, seeing as how they're playing at 8:15 tonight.
No Bailey Zappi tonight.
Oh, really? Did they? Oh, really? I'm so disappointed. The weakest link theory is an easy thing in a 5-on-5 basketball situation down the stretch, like the Cavs and the Celtics were. They just went at Garland because he was the smallest and the least physically developed player on the court. Let's be honest. And they wanted to drive home the notion that they could just snowplow the Cavaliers in their own building. And I thought maybe that strategy was not necessarily in the best interests in the last 3 to 4 or 5 minutes of that basketball game, when their modus operandi is for 5 men to touch the ball, and for you guys like Horford and guys like, all the guys, Pritchard and Tyson and Holiday wasn't even getting shots, for God's sakes. I would have thought that they would have used those players who brought them a championship rather than trying to prove a point, and it backfired. The Browns' weakest link, unfortunately, is their owner, and this becomes a tremendous disadvantage because I don't think there's any way around it. The teams that we talk about, if it's bad news that Trevor Lawrence can't play because he's got a concussion and he's hurt and whatever, this organization can't win, does not have the support of, Jacksonville can't be a big money-making enterprise for the NFL by fandom, people buying jerseys and that sort of thing. And their constant exposure in Europe and England makes you think that if a team could go there full time, that would be the one. I mean, it wouldn't be the Browns because the Browns fans, Jimmy Haslam can squat and poop in their face and they'll keep coming. Okay. Kind of like
as we've seen.
As we've seen. That's right. So the weakest link when it's your owner is a bad thing. But so we'll skip that because we can't do anything about that. But I can talk about Jedrick fucking Wills. Okay. If you're not prepared to play hurt, I mean, don't, how would you like to have that son of a bitch in your foxhole in battle? And that's what it is. You're in the trenches on a football field. How do you sit there and tell Jack Conklin, I'm making a business decision not to play? Hi, David. How you doing?
I'm good, though.
I mean, how in the hell can his teammates look at him and not think that he's a complete piece of shit making business decisions not to play when these guys who have had long careers like Conklin and like Bitonio are playing through all kinds of tragic injuries just to be out on the field, that this fat fuck who doesn't work very hard to get himself either more skillful or in better shape, that he's just going to lay down. The weakest link when it comes to a football team, besides unless it's the owner, is what people play and what people don't play. And if you're going to lose, you might as well try to play players who play hard. The weakest link in Cleveland is not only Jedrick Wills, it's Juan Thornhill. If I own the team, those players would never hit the field again. If you're not playing at full speed, you're going to get injured more frequently. That's a sure sign that you're going to get hurt. is if you're looking around trying to avoid injury, and if you're not willing to play hurt, you're in the wrong business, because that's what
Thornhill did get hurt again, by the way.
Huh?
Thornhill tweaked his calf during the practice.
Yeah, well, fuck him. He should never play again, and he's lazy, and he doesn't read, his own defensive scheme. He doesn't know where he's supposed to be. It's it's so obvious where the weakest links are, but the Browns keep playing these people, and I would rather we lose with people who are trying than lose with people who are not trying. And that's what it comes down to when you're losing. And sometimes it's just a sad and sorry thing, because your team's not going to win no matter what you do. Browns are not going to win no matter what they do. And Jameis Winston, when he was face to face to the press, and they said, "So, Jameis, how about coming back to Cleveland?" He went into some fucking speech about his family and how it's important for his family. I mean, that sounded like goddamn Kamala Harris trying to answer a question about the economy. Let's be honest about this. That's a yes or no question. Yes, you want to come back to Cleveland. No, you don't want to come back to Cleveland. Or you're not saying anything until the season's over, and to see who's going to offer me what. That's what that is. But there's also
a third option.
What's that?
The third option is, do the Browns want him to come back to Cleveland?
No, I mean, I don't think that the Browns are in any position, because DTR can't start in the NFL. They don't have a quarterback, and that's that.
No.
So they make decisions, the Browns do, and when the fans say, "Oh, we found our guy," it's the Lord of salvation. It's Jameis Winston. Yes, praise the Lord. It's Jameis Winston. It's a business, folks. It's a business. Jameis Winston is not stupid. Jameis Winston was, well, maybe he was stupid getting caught stealing crab legs, but he's smarter now because he's an adult, and he knows how bad the Browns are going to be for years to come. Why would you want to stay here? Wouldn't you rather have one last shot at 30 years of age to play for a decent football team instead of playing for a surefire loser? Because people are going to start calling him Jacoby Brissett, and he doesn't want that. You don't want to be known as the guy, the Case Keenum guy, the cleanup person. You don't want to be that person. So you're asking him these questions, and he's diverting. Well, it's important for my family and children. Sometimes you need to settle down. Yes, where do you want to settle down, Jameis? Someplace where there's seafood? Just tell us the truth. But he can't tell you the truth, because the truth is he'd rather be someplace else. And the fans are, again, wrong. You're wrong about everything. Because what are you going to say when Jameis gets a gig somewhere else for a little more money? And all you idiots are writing, "Oh, we got to get him for an extension. He's got to be our bridge quarterback." He doesn't want to be a bridge quarterback. He wants to be a starting quarterback. God.
As if he's a bridge quarterback, he can get the backup commercial from Progressive that Jacoby Brissett and Colt McCoy have been doing. I don't know if you've seen those commercials. It's like, "Oh, this isn't working. Wait a minute. Stop. Jacoby, come in here."
Yeah, I mean, it's a thankless job.
This is an audition. It's an audition, right? I mean, really, that's what it is. Because even if he ends up not being the guy, he can be the backup on a good team rather than a backup on this team. So,
well, and again, if he's, I mean, and he knows what's happened. I mean, and there are people who are still claiming that really that the Lord is Baker Mayfield, And I just happened to be looking at Twitter, and Vince Cellini. Remember Vince Cellini, the guy who used to do sports out of Cleveland?
I've heard of him.
Yeah, the news. He's still on television somewhere. I don't know. He was just going off on how great Baker Mayfield is, and he started this, don't give me, that shit that you're, as far as Deshaun Watson, don't give me any shit about this, and don't call me a Baker bro and give me any of that shit. So I wrote back to him, and I said, I'll tell you what. There's a place for pom-pom guys like you, and I don't call you a Baker bro. I would suggest that you take your vehicle, go to the Cheesecake Factory in Cleveland, and meet Baker in the parking lot like a 20-year-old girl named Casey did from Rittman, Ohio. Climb in the back seat and blow him. That's what I suggest. Get a mouthful of Baker goo, because that's all you're good for, Cellini. That's all you're good for. You don't have a point of view. The guy for the game had like a 53.7 rating, for Christ's sake. He threw 2 interceptions, and it was dumb luck that they won. And again, Jameis Winston would love to be in a position that Baker Mayfield's in, because, well, there's somebody who thinks they could get to the playoffs, although they still have a losing record. The bottom line is there's so many bad teams in the NFL. And take a look at the quarterbacks who always end up on those bad teams. It's incredible. There is a group of quarterbacks who go from city to city, like the losing caravan. And when that quarterback comes to your town, it's over. It's done. Team isn't any good, doesn't have a chance to win. Jameis doesn't want to be one of those guys. Although it's likely that's who he's going to be, because he's with the Browns, and the Browns can't win. How do you prove that you could win as a starting quarterback when you're throwing a ton of interceptions? You're playing for a lousy team. It didn't work for Joe Flacco. It didn't work for him.
I was going to say he's got Kadarius Toney on the active list for tonight. So, Bronc's happy.
That who's on the list?
Kadarius Toney is on there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's on the active list.
Oh, is that where he went to? Collingwood? Yeah, go ahead.
Shuffled some tight ends around too, I guess.
Yeah. Whitehurst, is that his name, or White?
Yeah,
White.
He caught a touchdown earlier this year.
Yeah. I mean, he's off the practice squad. So that's where Vince Cellini went to high school. Yeah, he should suck Baker's dick. That's all he's doing.
The only thing I know Vince Cellini for was there was an old News 8 blooper from years ago where I think Dan Coughlin was on, I think he was live somewhere or something, and he couldn't hear him. And Vince Cellini on the hot mic got cussing, saying, "Danny, get your finger out of your fucking ear." Yeah.
We say that kind of stuff all the time.
So, yeah, Oh, and then he went to Worcester College. No. Northeast Ohio guy, and he's a Baker bro who doesn't want to be called a Baker bro, so I won't call him that. I just think he should do what Casey did and suck the guy's dick, because that's what he's doing on Twitter. Same thing that Joe Rogan is doing right now with Elon Musk. If you want to move up in the world, you got to suck a little dick, Vince. Just the way it works. Casey knew that. Casey knew the only way she was going to get on a fucking talk show on the internet is if she sucked Baker's dick. Sometimes the end justifies the means, Vince.
I just want to let everyone know that I did not suck anyone's dick to get on this talk show.
Let's be clear. You wouldn't be able to find my dick. Come on.
I just want to make sure that's out there. That doesn't say I wouldn't do it if it was the right show, but we're just saying, okay.
Yeah, well, this ain't the right show.
No.
Let's make that really clear. Good God.
The Ravens are not going to the Super Bowl. I'm saying that now.
Okay.
God, who the hell knows who's going? You know, it's just right now the Steelers are probably playing as well as anybody. Oh, that was another great quote. They said that 4 times this season, this was another thing on the radio this morning. 4 times this season, if we're going to stay at the AFC North, the Cincinnati Bengals have scored 33 points or more in a game and lost. Tom Brady did that 4 times in his entire career.
Yeah.
4 times.
Oh man, Burrow was.
That's.
I don't know if you guys saw Burrow's presser, but ooh,
I'm sure he was.
Man, he was taking. Yeah, he was taking some shots at some teammates in that.
Yeah. Well, you can't. You know, if you score 33 points, you should be winning.
Yeah. Well, and again, here's the deal. Jameis Winston is hoping to latch on someplace for a team that has a chance. Yeah. Joe Burrow is watching his prime go down the shitter because Zach Taylor and the defensive coordinator and the people there, they're not a winning organization. They have the offensive pieces surrounding the quarterback. They don't have anybody. They let Jesse Bates get away in free agency. They didn't take care of their passing defense. They made Russell Wilson look like a Hall of Fame quarterback. They gave up all of those points, and they managed to lose, scoring 38 points. And Burrow is in as bad a position as you can imagine. He got that big payday, but now Mr. Swingin' Dick, Mr. Blondie, he's in Cincinnati. And he's
got a heart of glass.
Huh?
He's got a heart of glass.
Well,
yeah, that's right.
You're talking about owners being the problem too, right? They're right at the top of that list as well.
Yeah, and Richard is right. Justin Tucker either needs a change of environment or a change of employment definition because it
worked for Adam Vinatieri when he left New England and went to the Colts.
But this kind of smells of something that Yip City,
an injury or something.
Maybe he needs to change his pants.
Speaking of yips,
yes,
the field goal kicker from right up the street from where I am here had so much trouble trying to figure out how to get the ball between the 2 French fries over there. Ohio State missed 2 field goals.
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm going to have to.
And they were very makeable field goals. It wasn't like the NFL making 50-yarders left and right. These were both in the 30s. They're both makeable.
He had never missed inside 40 yards in his career. And then all of a sudden, the big Gaggaroonie.
Same game. Yeah.
So let me say that the Browns are going to lose, and they're going to lose 27 to 10. And that'll be that. All right. Because I do want to talk about Ohio State, too. And everybody knows that I don't like college football the way it's become this big business, and that it's pretty well determined what the programs are, the big programs, and where the talent is being shifted, and how Colorado is now suddenly getting all of these big time players and where the money is coming from. And I don't think that I really want to know. But what I do know is this. If the criteria of John Cooper and predecessors who had a lack of success against Michigan is any indication, then Ryan Day shouldn't have a job anymore. I mean, that's just the way it plays out. That was probably the worst strategy that he could have played. Well, I'm going to go out there and prove that we can push them around. We have all the talent in the world at wide receiver, and we can open the field up. The only time they moved the ball down the field was when they had under 2 minutes to do it, and they went wide outs, and they just spread everything out on the field and went straight down the field. And then they come back in the second half running draw plays. What the fuck?
You know how many targets Jeremiah Smith, the super freshman, had in the second half?
No.
The same number you and I had.
Wow.
Zero. You have a possible first-round draft pick on the field. You don't even throw him the ball. What the hell? I mean, this guy is better than probably every receiver we have on the Browns right now.
Yeah, the whole
and
thing.
And he's 19 years old, 18 years old.
I mean, third down and running deep draw play handoffs. I mean, it was like the only way they could have kept that inept Michigan team close in the game was that way. Michigan can't score. We knew that coming in. All you had to do was put up a couple of touchdowns. They weren't going to catch you. But for some reason, Ryan Day and Chip Kelly just decided.
The touchdown they got was off that interception deep in Ohio State territory with the first touchdown. I mean, they weren't going to score. We knew that already. Their quarterback threw for, I don't know, was like less than 100 yards. It was, I don't know, 75 yards, 76 yards, something like that. You know, going back in Ohio State history, Earl Bruce, who beat Michigan on a regular basis, got fired for going 10-3, 9-3 every year.
Yeah.
When you've lost 4 out of 5, and it's exactly the thing they said about Cooper. Oh, he recruits well. He brings all these players in here. Yeah, well, damn. Yeah, Richard, you nailed it right there. That's exactly what it is. When you look at what you got on the field, and the other part of it is Michigan's interior line is really good. So, their whole defensive line, I mean, they lost a lot of players from last year across the board, but their defensive line is still really good. Why are you with a patchwork offensive line, which is the 5th or 6th shuffle of the line this year? Why are you trying to stuff it right down their throat when they can't compete with you on the outside? So I just don't understand.
Whole thing made no sense to me. And again, it was like the Celtics deciding we're just going to go after Darius Garland. Like Darius Garland was, we're going to go after him. We're going to go after him. It's like, you got to beat the other 4 players too. I mean, they ended up allowing Donovan Mitchell to get hot. By doing what they did, they tried to make a point. And the point is you win the fucking game. And there is no point that you have to make. But that's this macho bullshit, well, we don't want to be known as a team that's just, open field. We want to muscle that Michigan team. And look what ends up happening. Now, here's what I'm going to say.
Worked for the Rams back in the Kurt Warner days, right? The greatest show on turf.
Right.
They just threw the ball to Holt. And I mean, it was just, yeah.
Yeah. Now, here's my point. I don't know what's happened to the world around me. I really don't know. But if you're 20, 19, 20, 21 years old, and you're 6-5, and your team has underachieved by what the standards of your fandom thinks, and you're playing your rival team, and you beat them in their stadium, you go ahead and plant the fucking flag. To the victor goes the spoils. Ohio State had better players. Ohio State had every reason to win the game. They talked themselves out of the game. The fans were unruly because they were pissed off, because they were booing at the play calling. And the bottom line is those 19, 20, 20-year-old boys who went out on that field and gave everything they had and up upset the Ohio State Buckeyes, had the right to plant that flag. And if you wanted to get into a fight, Ohio State players, you had the whole fucking game. You couldn't push them around. That's why you lost. Don't come after them after the game like that. That's horseshit. Let somebody celebrate their victory and take it to heart that the next time you play, you either play to your strength or you don't play at all. And you do it with a coach who isn't JB Bickerstaff, who's forcing Darius Garland to switch off in some fancy way, but you force fucking Darius Garland to play defense. And either he's man enough to do it or he's not. But you give your guys a chance to prove themselves within the way they play. Those wide receivers were wasted, totally wasted. And there's no wonder why they were so ruffled after the game. I mean, they had to say, what were we out here for? A skilled position. What does it matter if we're playing Woody Hayes ball? What difference does it make? It's the coach who's making the millions and gazillions of dollars, but these are the memories that young men carry for the rest of their lives. And those young men will carry the story like the 1980 U.S. hockey team. Do you believe in miracles? Yes. They're going to carry that forward. And Eruzione would talk about that for the rest of his life because he did that. And those Michigan guys aren't going to remember this as, oh, this was 6-5 season for us. This was that. We beat Ohio State. Let them celebrate. Quit being such pussies and thinking, oh, that's not fair. What's not fair is that Ryan Day and Chip Kelly didn't let their young men play the game that gave them the best chance to win. That's the shame of it all.
There's got to be something in the chat about Baker planting the flag, though. You do realize that's where all this shit comes from, right?
Well, they didn't care because he was in the SEC.
But they asked Baker about it. And, of course, that's the first person they would go to because he's the expert, and I don't care what he says. And anyway, he wasn't, they kept asking him, but he kept saying, oh God, oh God, oh God, because Vince Cellini was sucking his dick. You see?
I like how you segued back to that. That was really good.
You bring that back. Lord almighty.
But yeah, there was another flag incident too. There was another fight. I think Texas Tech or whatever, Texas Tech or something like that. They had a flag issue as well. Yeah. There's a couple of fights at the end of games, but they had a mic on Jack Sawyer, Captain Jack, and he was F-bomb this. They don't do this on our effing field. And I'm like thinking, well, that's on your coaches, bro. I get why you feel bad. You did everything you could. You held them to 13 points. You could have won this game. There's no question the defense did what they have 2 losses this year by a grand total of 4 points. In any other year, they would be done, but they do have a chance to redeem themselves because the playoff thing is now 12 teams deep. And maybe it might even be better that they don't play next week and have to play in they get a week off. Hard to say, but we'll see what happens after next week, who wins, who loses, as to whether or not we have a home game here in 2 weeks.
I'm just wondering if there's something fishy going on here in the studio. There we go. But I want to share a screen before I get out of here. This has to be the and I'm hoping that this is showing and we'll share for people. All right, good. Pete Prisco should stop picking games immediately. All right. Look at the fucking headline.
Whoops.
That's what he leads with. December 1, 2024, 7:52 in the morning, and Pete had this great idea along with his morning boner, his morning wood, that, the Bengals are going to get it done, and the Ravens are going to get it done, and by God, Aaron Rodgers is going to come back and upset the Seahawks.
Meanwhile, there's some guy other than Vince Giannini sucking dick in a parking lot because he lost his house on all these bets.
Well, that's just it. I mean, and people are gambling money on this crap. I mean, can you imagine?
Thank God I don't.
and what is and that guy is what? Pete Prisco is like, there's a guy, you can take him to the bank. You can take him to the bank and bring him into the vault, and he couldn't find the fucking money. Come on. Bengals keep
it's so easy to gamble nowadays on sporting events, but I fortunately am smart enough not to do that.
Mr. Blutarski, 0.00.
Well, if you're going to say Hoover, that, you have to say Daniel Simpson Day has no grade point average.
Right.
All classes incomplete.
Congratulations, Mr. Hoover. 2.0. You're at the head of your class. Great stuff. So I'm done. I'm done with what I had to say. And, I'm going to be watching and doing a halftime show and no post-game show, but I'll be laughing at halftime because the Cavaliers are a team to be taken seriously. And the reason that they should be taken seriously is they have a coach who is willing to put his players in the line of fire and give them an opportunity to play the game the right way. And if they don't, they're not going to get minutes. It's that simple. The Browns don't have the balls just to tell Jedrick Wills, get the hell out of here. Or to say to Juan Thornhill, you can rest that calf for the rest of the year because we're losing anyway. What's the point of putting people who don't care about winning on the field? It doesn't make sense to me. So, I'll be here at the half just be laughing and be jovial because, I really felt that the Cavaliers were rewarded and rewarded in a way that they won a tough game. I think all games against the Celtics would be tough games, but I think that the way they came back and the way Donovan led them back into the game offensively, and that we're starting to see Evan Mobley play more physically. And, some of the things that we're looking for, we're getting because the coach is insisting upon it. And, meanwhile, Kevin Stefanski keeps on with this, we battled, they're battling, and all this horse shit, when we know that Juan Thornhill wasn't even trying, that Jedrick Wills doesn't have the will to even play hurt. So we know the truth, okay? So I'll see you at halftime, and we'll be having a good old time together no matter what the score is, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Whatever is bad for Jimmy Haslam, that's what I want. All right? I just want whatever is bad for him. No dome, no nothing, no woman, no song. Nothing.
No woman, no cry.
Yeah, that's right.
A little bit crying going on.
I got it wrong that time. The ghost of Bob Marley is going to come back and get me, David, because I fucked up the name of his song.
Ugh.
What I really need is a redemption song. Now I'm in good favor again with the ghost
song or whatever. There you go.
Yeah. Bob Marley.
That's it.
All right, everybody. Thanks a lot for tuning into this edition of Moohead Radio. I appreciate everybody who listens. And to Vince Cellini, I've never met you, but stay away from my dick, okay? Just stay away from my dick. If you're going to go on there and just say, don't start that Baker bro shit with me and put that in your post, you know where I'm going to go. You know where I'm going to go. It's uncalled for. Look at me, I'm on TV, I have something to say, and you should listen to me. I don't even know what Vince Cellini is doing right now. Does anybody know what he's doing for a living right now? Besides,
I have no idea.
The president of the Baker Mayfield fan club. I have no idea. All right. Thanks for tuning in. I will see you at halftime tonight. Until then, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.